This is the FV1066 Senlac, a Tier 8 British premium light tank that will be coming into World of Tanks Blitz in the next couple of months. It's an incredibly weird looking vehicle. We can see it is a rear turreted light tank. Now, if this is instilling a little confidence in you that it might get the occasional bounce, no, this thing has essentially zero armor, as again, it is a light tank. However, the gun and a lot of the other statistics for this vehicle seem pretty dang solid, and in today's video, I'll be going over all of these stats and everything you're going to need to know. So let's get straight into it. Starting off, I should talk about the equipment, which is right above my head. We are running gun rammer on the vehicle, enhanced gun laying drive, and vertical stabilizers. We are increasing our hit points with improved assembly. We're running engine accelerator, obviously boosting the view range. So the build is fully equipped, running double food and fuel. We can see that the tank actually has a pretty decent chunk of view range at 290 meters. That's pretty solid, and it'll allow you to detect a lot of other opponents pretty far away. Something else I'd like to check is the camouflage rating, and it's pretty average, 33.5. We can see it's in 4th place out of the 9 lights. So yeah, pretty mediocre on the camo values, but at least the view range is pretty dang solid. The damage per minute is where this tank actually feels amazing. It has 2,700 DPM. That's really good. Even running calibrated shells, you're upwards of 2,500 DPM, and you got 215 mils of pen. Loading heat, you got 284 millimeters of pen with this vehicle with Calion, and even with rammer, you got 260 mils. So this thing has really, really good penetration, and it's got pretty solid DPM. That's really good for a light tank. Unfortunately, this vehicle does not carry Hesh. It's only got 44 mils of pen, but it does hit pretty hard at 250 damage per shot, as the base alpha is only 200. The vehicle features pretty average shell velocity of 1,000 meters a second, which means it's neither good nor bad. But something that is very good is the penetration loss over distance. We can see that it's 9%-ish, which is quite a bit better than a lot of normal AP rounds. So actually pretty dang solid on the overall gun stats. Then we make our way over to the gun handling, which is also really good. It's got a 1.5-second aiming time paired with only 0.308 dispersion. So the vehicle's accurate and aims in incredibly fast. However, it does have a bit of a downside. On move, this vehicle is very inaccurate. It's not like the worst thing ever, but it's not super accurate. When you're driving, especially at high speeds, this tank is going to be pretty meh on hitting shots. Now, what the good news is, when rotating the turret, it's incredibly good. So essentially, if you're sitting still and you need to move your turret back and forth, it's going to be really good at hitting shots. But if you're moving, it's going to be really bad at hitting shots. So keep that in mind. This thing's going to be more like a mobile tank destroyer. You're going to reposition, and then you're going to bunker down in that spot, farm, and then once somebody tries going for you, you can move and do it once again with your high DPM. Gun depression, 10 degrees. It's actually a bit surprising this thing does get 10 degrees. We'll have to take a look if it's 10 degrees over the front as well, due to the rear turreted design, but I would guess it is. The tank is also decently fast, reaching a top speed of 70 kilometers per hour and a reverse of 23. By the way, this thing only weighs in at 10 tons, making it the lightest light tank I've ever seen in the higher tiers. This thing literally weighs about the same as a shoebox. The tank's power to weight is pretty unfortunate for how light it is, at only 29. That's pretty mediocre. It's not bad. I should still point that out. Like 26 for medium terrain isn't bad, but it's the worst for a light tank, which is a little confusing because you would expect it to be pretty fast, again, for how light the vehicle is. Traverse speed is also pretty mediocre at 63 degrees a second and 57 on medium terrain, but let's be real, it doesn't really matter because, again, it's a light tank. You already got 58 degrees a second of traverse. I don't think you're going to need more than that to begin with, especially when your turret also traverses at 55 degrees a second. So you're never going to have to worry about being flanked or anything like that. It's just a little bit slower than your average light. You'll notice this tank is very small in size. It is the second smallest overall light, which means it'll be a little bit harder to shoot. Overall, the vehicle has a really good gun, and everything else seems to be pretty dang average. That's about as good as I can say. So it doesn't seem like there's anything extraordinary about this vehicle, but let's take a look at the armor profile. First thing I wanted to see, does it have 10 degrees over the front? And yes, it does. We can see that right here. With 10 degrees, aiming at the upper plate, it's going to be 180 at this angle. So you can start to understand that this tank has literally no armor. The frontal mid plate is 22 thick. Yes, you heard that right. 22. The lower plate, 22. The roof, or like the angled upper part, this entire angled bit is 40 to 50. So essentially, HE shells are going to rip this thing apart. They're going to absolutely crap on it. 150mm tanks like the Smasher, the KV2, although you can't fight a KV2, but if you could, it would crap on this vehicle. The turret armor is 31, and I mean, it's just useless armor. Everything about this tank's armor is absolutely useless. Taking a look at the side armor, it's 20. Side of the turret, 20. Rear of the tank, 15 and 12. So I think that about sums it up. Actually, the back of the turret's 10. This is by far the least armored tank in Tier 8. Essentially, with 22mm of upper plate armor and, oh my god, there's 11mm of base armor. That means any tank that has over a 30mm gun. So essentially, every single tank in the game is going to overmatch this upper plate. What that means is even if the vehicle's at an angle like this, you will still overmatch that upper plate due to the 3 calibers rule. Essentially, it's going to be impossible to bounce the Senlac. Completely impossible. So what do I think about this vehicle? Do I think it's going to be a good tank, or do I think it's going to be pretty dang mediocre? Well, after taking a look at all of the stats, again, we can see that the gun does have really solid damage per minute. But the problem is we also have the FV1066, and I think this vehicle just kind of defeats the purpose. Because again, if we do all the equipment and everything for the FV1066, the vehicle's got just about the same DPM at 2,708 compared to, what, 2,725. So the DPM is basically the same. The standard pen on this vehicle's better. It's still got very good premium pen. And if we make our way over to, the gun stats, the tank's got similar aiming time. Definitely worse dispersion, but it's not like the worst thing ever, especially when we take a look at the on movement being much, much better. 10 degrees of gun depression. The vehicle's a little bit slower at 62, but it's got a much better effective power to weight, and the vehicle's got the same camo values, and I should also point out this thing's got actual armor. The upper plate's 140, the turret's 160, and the mantlet's 180. So when using gun depression, this vehicle's upper plate's upwards of 200. It's actually like decently armored, enough to get bounces, plus it's still got that DPM, it's still got mobility, camo. Personally, I don't really understand the point of the Senlac. I've talked to one of my friends who is a tester who messes around with this vehicle, and he said that this is probably the worst tank he's tested in a very long time. And I can really understand why. Sure, it has a gun, but you need armor, or you need something else. If this vehicle went like 80 kilometers per hour and it had the power to weight of the Dracula, then sure, it might be interesting. But having effectively zero armor, only having DPM, really, in my opinion, seems pretty dang useless. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the Senlac, but to me, this thing seems pretty mediocre. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.